The convict Jean Valjean is released from a French prison after serving 19 years for stealing a loaf of bread and for subsequent attempts to escape from prison. When Valjean arrives at the town of Digne, no one is willing to give him shelter because he is an ex-convict. Desperate, Valjean knocks on the door of Miréle, the kindly bishop of Digne. Miréle treats Valjean with kindness, and Valjean repays the bishop by stealing his silverware. When the police arrest Valjean, Miréle covers for him, claiming that the silverware was a gift. The authorities release Valjean and Miréle makes him promise to become an honest man. Eager to fulfill his promise, Valjean masks his identity and enters the town of Montreuil-sur-Mer. Under the assumed name of Madeleine, Valjean invents an ingenious manufacturing process that brings the town prosperity. He eventually becomes the town's mayor. Fantine, a young woman from Montreuil, lives in Paris. She falls in love with Tholomyès, a wealthy student who gets her pregnant and then abandons her. Fantine returns to her home village with her daughter, Cosette. On the way to Montreuil, however, Fantine realizes that she will never be able to find work if the townspeople know that she has an illegitimate child. In the town of Montfermeil, she meets the Thénardiers, a family that runs the local inn. The Thénardiers agree to look after Cosette as long as Fantine sends them a monthly allowance. In Montreuil, Fantine finds work in Madeleine's factory. Fantine's co-workers find out about Cosette, however, and Fantine is fired. The Thénardiers demand more money to support Cosette, and Fantine resorts to prostitution to make ends meet. One night, Yvert, Montreuil's police chief, arrests Fantine. She is to be sent to prison, but Madeleine intervenes. Fantine has fallen ill, and when she longs to see Cosette, Madeleine promises to send for her. First, however, he must contend with Yvert, who has discovered Madeleine's criminal past. Yvert tells Madeleine that a man has been accused of being Jean Valjean, and Madeleine confesses his true identity. Yvert shows up to arrest Valjean while Valjean is at Fantine's bedside, and Fantine dies from the shock. After a few years, Valjean escapes from prison and heads to Montfermeil, where he is able to buy Cosette from the Thénardiers. The Thénardiers turn out to be a family of scoundrels who abuse Cosette while spoiling their own two daughters, Eponine and Azelma. Valjean and Cosette move to a rundown part of Paris. Yvert discovers their hideout, however, and they are forced to flee. They find refuge in a convent, where Cosette attends school and Valjean works as a gardener. Marius Pontmercy is a young man who lives with his wealthy grandfather, M. Gillenormand. Because of political differences within the family, Marius has never met his father, George Pontmercy. After his father dies, however, Marius learns more about him and comes to admire his father's democratic politics. Angry with his grandfather, Marius moves out of Gillenormand's house and lives as a poor young law student. While in law school, Marius associates with a group of radical students, the Friends of the ABC, who are led by the charismatic Enjolras. One day, Marius sees Cosette at a public park. It is love at first sight, but the protective Valjean does his utmost to prevent Cosette and Marius from ever meeting. Their paths cross once again, however, when Valjean makes a charitable visit to Marius's poor neighbors, the Jondrettes. The Jondrettes are in fact the Thénardiers, who have lost their inn and moved to Paris under an assumed name. After Valjean leaves, Thénardier announces a plan to rob Valjean when he returns. Alarmed, Marius alerts the local police inspector, who turns out to be Yvert. The ambush is foiled and the Thénardiers are arrested, but Valjean escapes before Yvert can identify him. Thénardier's daughter Eponine, who is in love with Marius, helps Marius discover Cosette's whereabouts. Marius is finally able to make contact with Cosette, and the two declare their love for each other. Valjean, however, soon shatters their happiness. Worried that he will lose Cosette and unnerved by political unrest in the city, Valjean announces that he and Cosette are moving to England. In desperation, Marius runs to his grandfather, M. Gillenormand, to ask for M. Gillenormand's permission to marry Cosette. Their meeting ends in a bitter argument. When Marius returns to Cosette, she and Valjean have disappeared. Heartbroken, Marius decides to join his radical student friends, who have started a political uprising. Armed with 2 pistols, Marius heads for the barricades. The uprising seems doomed, but Marius and his fellow students nonetheless stand their ground and vow to fight for freedom and democracy. The students discover Yvert among their ranks, and, realizing that he is a spy, Enjolras ties him up. As the army launches its first attack against the students, Eponine throws herself in front of a rifle to save Marius's life. As Eponine dies in Marius's arms, she hands him a letter from Cosette. Marius quickly scribbles a reply and orders a boy, Gavroche, to deliver it to Cosette. Valien manages to intercept the note and sets out to save the life of the man his daughter loves. Valien arrives at the barricade and volunteers to execute Yvert. When alone with Yvert, however, Valien instead secretly lets him go free. As the army storms the barricade, Valien grabs the wounded Marius and flees through the sewers. When Valien emerges hours later, Yvert immediately arrests him. Valien pleads with Yvert to let him take the dying Marius to Marius's grandfather. Yvert agrees. Yvert feels tormented, torn between his duty to his profession and the debt he owes Valien for saving his life. Ultimately, Yvert lets Valien go and throws himself into the river, where he drowns. Marius makes a full recovery and is reconciled with Gillenormand, who consents to Marius and Cosette's marriage. Their wedding is a happy one, marred only when Valien confesses his criminal past to Marius. Alarmed by this revelation and unaware that it was Valien who saved his life at the barricades, Marius tries to prevent Cosette from having contact with Valien. Lonely and depressed, Valien takes to his bed and awaits his death. Marius eventually finds out from Thénardier that Valien saved Marius's life. Ashamed that he mistrusted Valien, Marius tells Cosette everything that has happened. Marius and Cosette rush to Valien's side just in time for a final reconciliation. Happy to be reunited with his adopted daughter, Valien dies in peace.